So I would like to begin my speech with a quote. Standing out of the crowd could make you an easy target. But if the crowd was the target, that would make you the only survivor. Why am I talking about this? Today, I'm going to be talking about the illusion of normality. Normal is a word that society describes as something most people feel, experience, behave, and in particular situations, right? So if I had to ask all of you here, how many of you here are normal? How many people would raise your hand? Show of hands. If you think you're normal, raise your hand. All right? All right. So if I had to ask the count up, right? How many of you here think you're abnormal? There is no right or wrong answer, right? Abnormal? Okay. A few good hands. All right. Much lesser than those that are calling themselves normal. But that's all right. You know, I personally would consider myself abnormal. Growing up, I had dyslexia, dyscalculia, and ADHD, and by definition, that puts me in the neurodivergent spectrum. What would that mean? That would essentially mean that I wouldn't be classified as normal, right? But for me, this is the only normal I have ever known. It feels pretty normal to me. It's my everyday, it's my life, and it feels pretty normal, right? So on that note, I have a story to tell you. As a mental health professional, I meet a lot of different kinds of people. One such person I met exemplifies a lot of women that I meet, right? Her name was Maya. She came in and she said, you know what, Aksheyaa? Every time, every day, I feel so drained, so overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, what is wrong? You know, why are you feeling this way? And her response was, Aksheyaa, when I have such a happy family, I have happy children, healthy parents, a supportive husband, I have a full-time job, I'm in a great position, and yet, for some reason, I feel like I'm drowning all the time. And I said, okay, what is this feeling? You know, what is this feeling of drowning that you're experiencing? And she says to me, this feeling of drowning is that every day I have so many tasks, I have so many roles to play. I have to be a good mother, a good wife, a good daughter, a good employee, and juggling between all of this on an everyday basis, having to shift between one to another, is very challenging for me. And I was like, that's completely understandable, you know, because you have so many roles to play, so many things to do every single day, so it is only normal that, you know, you feel that overwhelm. And she said, but every other woman seems to do it, and they seem to be doing it just fine. And I said, okay, Maya, if I had to ask your friend how you are doing, what would she say? And her response was, she would say, I'm doing it just fine. And I was like, there's your answer. We're all struggling through it, right? And what does that mean? There is something called as roles that we all play every day. Mother, daughter, sister, father, whatever else it could be, a student, a teacher, even in your area of employment, right? They're all different roles that we play. And according to a study by Eagle in 2012, it's been said that women that have significant expectations really tend to feel 40% of women tend to feel higher levels of stress as compared to those who have lesser expectations out of their roles. And 30% of women who have full-time jobs and are primary caregivers end up feeling 30% or have a higher chance, 30% higher chance of actually facing a burnout, right? And that's not small numbers, right? That's, if there are 100 of you here, that's 30 of you here, right? That's big numbers, and that's something we should heed to, right? That's something we should be looking at. So on that note, anxiety levels among adolescents over time has significantly increased, right? And a study conducted by Twing in 2018, it's been pointed out that adolescent girls especially, because of the pressure, the need to conform, imagine 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds experiencing such intense pressure from society that their anxiety levels are something that can be compared to those in asylums in 1950, right? And that is a significant increase in anxiety. And that is your new normal. That normal is what women go through every other day today. That's what children, kids, girls have been going through every other day. And because it is so gradual, it is almost invisible, the amount of pressure that's built up over time. Now, even before I talk about the problem with normal, I will talk to you about what normal is. I gave you a very layman's definition. And I said, it's what most of us do. It's what most people do that is considered normal. But if I had to get a little bit scientific, this is the Gaussian curve. The middle is where most of us lie at any given point of time. In the 19th century, mathematically, this was created to prove what normal is. And that is why normality became more and more solidified, right? And that brings us to the problem with normal. Normal essentially means a woman sits down, goes to work, goes to university, works, comes back, takes care of the kids, comes back, goes to sleep, gets whatever little sleep they can get. Same can go for men as well. You go to work, you come back, and whatever else that you do, it becomes a monotony. It becomes something that is your normal, right? But let's take women, for example. Women in that capacity, when they have a very normal life, which includes every other stressor like what Maya has, it becomes relatively difficult for them to sustain it, right? And that is what I'm here to talk about. A birth cohort change in anxiety and neuroticism by Twing, a 2010 study, is what really put it in words, right? And it said the anxiety levels through generations has just increased, impacting women and girls drastically, right? And that brings me to another story just yet. And this might be one of my favorite stories that I usually tell people. This is a story of a rebellion, right? And I say a rebellion almost like it's a revolution. But I am here to tell you a very, very normal story that we must have all seen on an everyday basis. A mother came up to me and said, I think my daughter needs therapy. I said, okay, what's happened? Why do you think so? And her response was, my daughter, she's just turned 13, she's talking back, she's not listening to me. There is just so much that she's doing that she never used to do before. She wants to do things on her own, she's not ready for that. I'm like, okay, so tell me, what is it that you want to address? I want to address, and she says, I want to address the fact that my daughter is rebelling against me. And I said, okay, how is this exactly rebelling? Do you think it's normal for a teenager to behave in a way where, they talk back, they seem to claim to want autonomy? And she was like, yeah, I see kids doing it all the time, but I know my daughter. I was like, yes, everyone knows their daughter. That's just how everyone raises their daughter, I can remember back when I used to be such a big, I will not listen to anything my parents say to me, simply because that's just what teenagers do. There is a role confusion that happens there where they need to figure out how to be a child and also be autonomous at the same time. They're learning to do a lot more things by themselves. They seem to think they know a lot more about themselves. And there's a lot to navigate about it. But if I had to say it is normal for a teenager to act that way, right, it doesn't necessarily mean there's nothing that we can do about it. Right? That's also something to keep in mind. So what exactly was happening here? The daughter was trying to break something called the status quo. A status quo is how things exactly are, the way they are at the very moment. For example, a status quo would be that people right now have gender norms in their heads, right? A norm that girls wear dresses, boys wear shorts or shirts or pants, right? It could be that women are primary caregivers, that men need to provide. These are all gender norms that are in your head. And I say this, and I am very, very sad to also say that a gender norm index by the United Nations Development Program released in 2020 stated that 90% of people, men and women, hold biases against women. And if that wasn't saddening enough, A study by the World Economic Forum also quoted that the women are the ones that do maximum unpaid care, and that statistics went up to a 76%. So imagine the amount of stress, the amount of difficulty that it sort of adds to, the status quo that exists over here. So what would it mean to say you're challenging the status quo? What does it mean when you say women get to say, I'm not going to do this today, even though it's expected out of me? They're labeled, they're stigmatized, they're told that they're deviant, that they're aggressive even maybe sometimes, because that is not what people are used to from women, right? They expect women to be soft and kind and gentle. And that's not always possible, right? Women are going to be all kinds, and that is what we are to expect. So that also brings me to the fact that being in the social sector, I know very well that within the box that we are in, we don't make much difference. We are still going to stay in that box, and only if we choose to step out of it, go into the greatness, which is what is outside the box of normality. And the box is in the center there. If you can see, that's between C and E. That is the most normal of it all, right? So if you look at these people, Albert Einstein with his theory of relativity, or Mahatma Gandhi with his theory of nonviolence, and Marie Curie, the first woman to have that breakthrough in science to win a Nobel Peace Prize, it wouldn't have come at a very easy cost. There is so much that women have to fight every day to be able to get there. And that to be able to do it at that era means so much more. And none of them could have achieved what they achieved if not for breaking out of that normal box that we are all trying to put into, right? And to be very honest with you, if I stayed in the box of normality, I wouldn't be here talking to you all, right? And I think that is what makes the difference. That is what you decide when you choose to say, I am going to break out of the normal and I'm going to actually make a difference. And on this note, I do want to say that breaking away from normal can be with positive or negative intentions, right? And I don't want to say every time you break out of a normal or normality, you will automatically go into a very positive note, right? So the intention really matters, and I really wanted to draw that boundary. And to wrap up, I wanted to say something Audre Lorde quoted, that it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, or celebrate those differences, right? And I think we are all different in the ways that we are, and in some capacity or the other, none of us are normal, right? So if I had to really take a moment out right now and ask you all, how many of you think that you're abnormal right now? Please give me a show of hands. All right, more hands. All right, and with that, I'd like to conclude my speech. Thank you very much for having me here today.